Welcome back to another video on Maya tutorials and the basics. In the last video that we saw, I took you through each one of the toolbars and give you a brief overview of what each one does. Now, this time, we're going to be digging deeper into that, looking into the tools of polymodeling and how they will affect the object or the project that you're working on. So before we start, I'm going to use a Polycube as a template just to show off exactly what it can do and what we can do to it, obviously. So I'm just going to go onto the toolbar here where we'll be working from and click on this cube. And it's just going to spawn a normal cube in the middle. Now in Blender, I'm assuming the last time I went on it, you were just greeted with this anyway. In addition to that, let me take this off for a second. If I go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, and Settings again, if you change the working units, the linear working units from centimeters to meters, usually this becomes a lot more friendly to a game engine such as Unity, which I'm more familiar with. I think Unreal Engine has their own working units, but we're just going to stick with meters for now because it's big enough that if you drag this into another piece of software, it's quite easy to recognize because meters are quite nice to use, where centimeters are more specific. That's why you see a lot of joiners use millimeters, because it's very accurate to what they're working with, because you need to get stuff right. Anyway, I digress. I am yet again going to click on the cube, and in the meters it is scaled 1:1. And when I mean that, just for a better reference, if I move my pivot here, and that's the 1:1, a meter by a meter, exactly on this grid. So if that explains it better, then it's best to do that. Let me just reset here. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. And I will keep an eye on this as well, just to see how this gets affected with this. So we have Polygon Sphere as well, which is a very good character if you sometimes do an organic shapes, or if you want to even consider doing, like, how do I say it, like a football or something. Sometimes they're even used mainly for faces, but sometimes a sphere without all of these verts hitting in the middle is the better shape to use. I completely forgot what that one's called, but it's mainly like a quad sphere where it's only made up of squares. Anyway, so that is the polysphere, the polycube. We get a polycylinder. Let me move this aside. And, well, it's a polycylinder. I remember my first polycylinder was on a bottle, usually the very easiest thing that you can make. You can just get the top, and then you can like extrude it, bring it in a bit. Don't know what kind of fucking bottle this is, but hey. And then, yeah, there you go. Bottle. Anyway. So yeah, that's what you can do with a sphere. Next one would be the polygon cone, the P-cone for short. I don't see myself ever using this one really, and even when I did, I used to just get all the verts for this and merge them into the center, it's essentially 6 and 2/3. It's however way you want to do it. Either you want to torture yourself by doing that, or you can just be lazy and do that. Either way, it's up to you. Polytorus, this is just a big donut, so good for making donuts or rings or even chains. You can change up the radius, the twist, the subdivisions. Sometimes it's nice to make nice little ornaments with them, such as if you have any steel works that require rings, it's really good to get a starting point with that. The next one is plane. Well, obviously it's good for planes and whatnot. Sometimes even people use height maps on these and make little mountain ranges, but like I say, it's usually better done on ZBrush. But if you don't have that, this is a good alternative. Or Blender, as you would, since it's free. Unlike this, where I've used the student license. The next one would be just the equivalent to a plane. So if I get a plane out here, that's the plane. The other one would be the polygon disk, which is, I like it. It can be used in a matter of like things. I am currently creating a watch, a mechanical skeleton watch, which requires this to be on the top as the glass cover. And it's very nice when you want to save up some polys for rendering later. This one is very weird. Platonic solid. Like I say, I don't ever see myself using this, but it is what it is. I really haven't seen much use for it, but it goes into some things like the tetrahedron, the octahedron, dodecahedron, I know that one, and the ososahedron, or whatever you want to call it. I know math. Math is good. Math is your friend. Never thought I'd say that ever. Then we've got like these super shapes, like Jason Bourne type of boys. Now this might be a normal sphere like this one, but the only difference I find with these is when you go into the channel editor on the right side, and say, for example, if you just change it to an ellipse, it's a super shape after that. It's so weird. It's so cool. I love it. It's like a cactus. I don't want to touch it, but it looks pretty. So yeah, them are the few of them. Have I got any more? We have polygon type, which is here. Can I not add a polygon type into here, please? Wait. Yeah. How can I do this? I can't duplicate a cube and do it, can I? Okay, so I remember in Maya 2018, I think there's been a problem currently with the polygon type or the SVG. I used to be able to use them, but now recently they've kind of thrown a fit and don't like me anymore. We'll skip that for now until I find a fix for them. I will come back to these later after editing these, because it's pretty essential that I do come back to this later. I will delete these since we know what they are now, and just make a square. Since this is probably the easiest editable thing, we will start here. So, combine. Now, we have nothing else to combine this with, so I'm going to duplicate this, or if I do, I'm really not used to using this this way. So yeah, Control D or duplicate. We can duplicate this cube, drag it to the side. Now, on the outliner, these are two separate entities, two separate cubes entirely, P-cube 1 and P-cube 2. But let's say if I, for some reason, wanted these two to be all one entity, I would click on Combine, or go to Mesh, Combine, same icon. They have two different types of transform data for each cube, but overall they are one cube. Now say if I didn't want the data and I just wanted the cubes as they are, just the base normal cube, I would just have to delete the history, delete the construction history. And then we're back to square one. Square cube. Funny. Anyway, I will keep these here for later because we'll need them. And we'll move on. We'll just focus on this one for now. This here is the extract tool. Now, I made a mistake on the last video I was recording, and I said that you can extract faces only. Now, that is not necessarily the case. So, for example, if I extrude this, now we'll get on extrude later. So if I extruded that, delete this because it's not centered and it annoys me. I'll make a cut down the middle. Now say if I didn't know originally how to separate these, and I didn't want to go like separating verts and whatnot. If I just selected the faces of the side I wanted to get rid of by going right click, face, selecting your faces. By the way, this confused a lot of people. Hold down right click and just let go after you've held it down and it'll select that. But like hold down left right click, hover over vertex, let go, and you've got vertexes. Simples. Anyway, faces. Say if you wanted this whole half of the cube separated from the rest of it, but you don't want to lose, like, you don't want these faces to start disconnected from each other. You just want this whole thing to be one entity to itself. You would click on extract, and this now becomes its own piece with its own transforms and whatnot, but its pivot will be reset to the center. So we'll just click on here to center pivot. Like I said, it's good when we come back to these later. And that's its own thing. Now, I'm going to put this over here and show you further what extract can do. Like I said, if you click on face and do a singular face, yeah, let's do that. Ow, excuse me. So we click on a singular face and then press extract. Yet again, the face becomes its own entity after that. Resets pivot, and there we go. Simple as anything. We can do anything we want with this now. We can extrude faces. We can add more polys to it if we fancy, like this. Excuse me, throat's getting really dry. Yes. And so forth. That's what we can do. Anyway, let me just put these back and move on to the next tool, which would be a mirror. Now, mirror is an interesting one. So if I was to, let me move this down. So I have this cube, which has been completely unaltered. And if I want a cube exactly on the opposite side, exactly mirrored to where it is, everything's exactly the same. Same entity, just opposite side in 3D world space. What I could do is, I could just simply click on mirror, and this little pop-up box turns up, which either asks me, do I want to cut my geometry down the middle? If I do that, then this will still be separate to this. As soon as I finish, for now I'm going to just keep it off. I still want this to be one whole object. I will change my axis position, the place where I want it to be mirrored by. So if I want it down the world, there's a whole mirror down this world for visual reason. I can do world, or I can do object, mirror it by its own object. But for now, we're just going to do mirror, just to show it easier. Offset would be, I'll come to that later. The axis would be X, so it's on its normal axis, Y or Z. Z is usually the opposite to where it's at. But for now, like I said, it's all dependent on which situation you're in. Offset is, even if I want it on the Z, maybe I might want it a little bit further away. And that's offset. It gets a position where it was originally at and it offsets it to whichever way you want. It goes negative to your coordinates or positive to your coordinates. Either way. Most of the time you might not need it. You can merge the borders, but this really comes into the cases where these are separate. Say if you have this cube without a face, and then you mirror it over with the big hole in the middle, and then bridge it, you can bridge it. Simple as. I do warn that if you do use this, sometimes your faces won't always merge together. So whenever you want to sculpt, smooth out, or do anything with it, it will create holes. It will create huge problems. So I do beg you to make sure that all your edges are connected at the end of the day. Right, so anyway, moving on to smooth. Now smooth is interesting. It works in many different ways. You can use it in many different ways to whatever advantage you like. but sometimes it can be your worst enemy at the same time, such as its other smaller brother or sister, reduce. Say if I have this here and I press 1, it stays normal, the normal smoothness, which is normal hard. If I do 2, it does a smooth view with its original cage over the top, what it used to be. If I do 3, it just does a smooth view, and we can see that on the bottom. So, if I do smooth view, it's going to look like a ball. And that's what it would look like if I actually did click on this. So, for example, that's if I click 1, that takes us back to normal. Takes me back to normal, excuse me for my slang. I do really get improper language sometimes. If I click smooth without doing anything to it, it goes to that, it's going to try and get to that original shape that it was in, as we saw earlier. Look familiar? Good. Same thing with this, but I'm going to smooth it this time. Oh, my bad. Close. See if I smooth it twice, we have this polygon looking ball. And by the way, when I said earlier about the sphere, this is the kind of sphere we're talking about, just a higher density of polygons. For faces, I expand. Anyway, if we were to reduce this, it would go back to whatever poly count we can, and it goes back to a cube. But bearing in mind, it gets quite risky because then we have smooth surfaces, which are these, and we don't want that if we're insisting on working on hard surface models. So what we do is hold in Shift and right click, soften hardened edges, and soften harden. We get back to square one. Square. Cube. Anyway, let me just make this cube again. So that is smooth and reduce. Adds polygons, takes away polygons. Only use this if you need to. I don't imagine you will need to use it. Sometimes people use it at the end to get a more smoother model without all of the edges and whatnot. And these days, with the rise of high poly models, with the rising power of hardware, you can go that far. Anyway, the god tool, in my opinion, my favorite tool, which is Extrude, right up here. Yet again, if you click your faces and either press Ctrl E, which is the key binding, or you can just click on Extrude, you get this happening here, which is the gizmo for all of the transforms, such as your move, your rotate, your scale, but this is for everything. But for now, we're just going to use move. And that's what it does. Extrude, erect, either way. Potato, potato, 6 and 2 3s. A swamp is a swamp. This is what happens, and you can just keep on doing that to your heart's content. You can do it to as many as you want, in whichever way you want, in whichever way you feel like you can. It's very open to what you can do. But yes, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty visually explanatory what this can do. You can make anything with this. You can make a spaceship out of this. As I shown on my introductory video, that's what that ship was originally. Not like this, but it was a cube. Believe it or not, it was a cube. Very easy for a cube as well. This here on the next tool is bridge. This is why I needed this. It bridges one cube with another. Bearing in mind, if you have two separate objects, they will need to be merged. So you can combine them, or by clicking on this, do edge, click each edge that you want to merge up. Here's a side note as well. They have to be the same number of edges. You can't merge 5 edges into 4 edges, or 2 into 10 edges. Just won't work. Has to be the equal amount of edges on each side. So if you have 4 edges here, 4 edges there, it works perfectly. So let's click on bridge, and that's what happens. And with the pop-up box, you can add your divisions if you fancy it. You can add a taper if you want to, which adds a little twist on it. But technically, that's a twist, so I don't know what they were thinking. It's just very confusing. Direction, source, target, bridge offset. You can do your own little thing. You can do a linear or a blend. Like I say, it's very open. It's just a case of messing about. Anyway, let me just link these two up again. Next one would be bevel. Now, bevel's so interesting. I would it can be definitely more used in hard surface modeling when you're creating crates and whatnot. It's quite a handy tool to have on you. But I'm just going to show you how it works and how it can be affected later on. So if I was to, I'm just going to delete these middle edges right here. So we have just a normal rectangle or a cuboid. We bevel this. And as you say, we'll bevel the outside. It just adds a division between each edge that I select and creates this nice ramp down here. So it usually ends up at a 45-degree angle as a standard, but we can add more segments which will curve that out a little bit. We can add some depth to it if we fancy, but I'm not going to do that. Metering is uniform. We can do that if we fancy it. Meter along edge. It's very open, to be honest. There's nothing much you can do, much else you can do. Chamfer, it's only if you don't want to go that 45-degree, 90-degree, whichever angle. If you just want bevels on the out of here, that's great. And like I say, this really helps with hard surface modeling, because when I was using the smooth, it turns into this very nice smooth edges and corners. It helps so much with hard texturing. I would definitely recommend, if you are doing hard texturing or making crates, when you bevel something. Oh, what have I done? There we go. When you bevel something, make sure you keep chamfer off. But if you want to round something off, either way, you can turn it on and have that curl if you need it. Anyway, where are we at now? So we've had bevel, merge vertices, border edges based on selection. So let me try this one. I don't use this as much, but I'm gonna try it anyway. So say if I delete this and this face. What have I got here? Merge vertices, border edges based on edge selection. Yes. Okay. Oh wait, let me try this. Yes. Right. Yes. So say for example, if I had two verts on either side of each other next, like within a hole, and you say you wanted to have these two vertices merged up, you can click on either one and just merge them. Simple as anything, really. These can be also used for, I think they could be used for bridging as well, but for now, let's just keep with the vertices and have it at that, because that's the only one personally I know, but at least we have a base idea of how it works. Merge the center, merge selected components to their center point, a bit like what we did with the cone earlier. But let's try it with the cylinder. So if I open up a cylinder, move it aside, and say, oh damn, I really want the cone. No phase. We select every vertex, and we say we want it to be everything to be merged here without having any hidden vertices. We can just click on merge to center, and there we go. And now it's just all one. It's all one vertice. There's nothing sticking out of it. It's all just one. The next one would be flip triangle, but this would only work if you had triangle faces. Now, coming back to this, we all have cubes here. They're all square. But if I was to select, yes, if I have the selected faces here that I want to triangulate, I would shift right click, triangulate them. And this is what will show up, but it will only show up on the faces that you select. Now, say if for some reason you might find yourself in a situation you might need this flipped around to the other side for topology flow. You can flip the triangle, simple as that, and then you can flip it back. Like I say, very self-explanatory. Now, here's where it gets interesting. A bit like the extract tool, but apart from separating, it says here, duplicate the current selected facet in a new shell and shows a manipulator to adjust the new offset. So we knew what offset was. It means like create something new and offset it away from its current position. So, for example, if we duplicate this face only and offset it to where it is, then there we go. Oh, we had that. My bad. So we had the face, duplicated, and then we create its own offset. Oh, apologies. It kind of turns into its own thing, own object after a while. Apart from extract, I think duplicate just brings it into its own object. And then finally we have circularize. So let me just try and find an example I can use this somewhere. Oh, actually, yes. Yeah. Fill hole. Connect components. Cool. Right. So if I was to yes, let's try this. So if I was to have this and connect it up a few times at least, and do the same with this one. And maybe I might want a hole in here that would be like some sort of barrel of a gun or something like that. I can then circularize it or something. Oh, apologies. I don't really use this one that much. I was dumb. I was very, very dumb. Hasn't changed, but still. I was clicking on merge to center, apart from this one. That's what I was supposed to do. So yeah, it just circularizes everything that you need. So if you're going from a hexagonal form or a square form or a triangular form, it'll circularize everything. I highly doubt it'll go from a triangle or a circle, but physics be physics. After 2020, nothing surprises me anymore. This one is a multi-cut tool. It's so good if you want to just create custom shapes and just draw your way through life. Just like every field art student like myself. Yeah, you can just create any shape that you want. You can create some debris or something like that. You can create damage points. So much you can do with this, but it does kind of mess up your model a little bit, so I'd be keeping careful of how it would look when lighting it. This here is like target weld tool. I absolutely love this one because what it does is it just connects one to the other. So much fun. This one here is a quad draw tool. So basically what you can do is you would have to change this to a live surface, and then start drawing quads on here. This is very good for retopology when you're creating characters, so you go from a high poly to a low poly without having to delete edge loops and everything like that. It takes forever to do. And retopology later on helps you with baking, so you don't have to lose a high poly model to optimization. Yeah. Why the hell do I find it so hard to speak today? Anyway. The UVs are very different, so basically if I have to put it in any form at all, UV unwrapping is basically turning a 3D object into a 2D plane to get ready for texturing or baking, but mainly texturing. So I'm going to open up the UV editor, and this is what it looks like. This is a net layout of this 3D object shown in a 2D view. Let me just get this aside. I'll just expand this. Usually I have it like this. So you see your object and how the UVs will be shown by clicking on this checker here. So you can see how the object's getting scaled. It's got a lot of stretch around here, and this one actually UV mapped out just fine. So did this one and that one and this one and that one. But the rest of it's pretty stretched because we have extruded these. So for example, if I was to extrude that, then it will start stretching. That's the example of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to UV unwrap these using the tools that we have already learned in Maya. I can't really find a way to put these. There's so many things. And I can't stretch over 2 monitors either, so it's going to be fun. If I make this smaller, it should work, yeah. So, usually what you can do is, for an example, start with a cube. And like I say, this cube's already got its netting set out. But say if you wanted to have like, I don't know, say if you want to have a stripe around here and there, but you really couldn't. So what you can do is to start with any complicated model is to automatically UV unwrap it. Now I'm going to use a different project for this, so I can show you what I mean. Ooh, so many here. Alright, I have finally managed to choose a project which I would like. Now, the UVs on top are used for, like I said, turning 3D objects into 2D planes ready for texturing. I'm so tired. So what I could do, excuse me, let me find a good example for this. Yes, so if I get this singular window pane kit here, this is all a 3D object, of course, but it's been UV unwrapped, it's got no stretches, it's a little bit ununiform, but if you can get away with it, then that's great, which most people sometimes can't get away with it. Anyway, so yeah, 3D object, and with the power of the UVs, I can unwrap it into a 2D plane. Now let me try on a duplicate of this object. Sometimes something as complex as this, if you're creating separate pieces for it, it's good to UV unwrap them before you finish up. Sometimes I like to make myself suffer, 3D model the entire object and then UV unwrap it afterwards, which I usually do to every object that I've ever came past, unless I absolutely need to. If I'm making duplicate objects, it's best to UV unwrap it before you duplicate it many times. So, what I usually do with any complicated objects, such as this one, I create a UV texture coordinates for the selected objects by automatically finding the best UV placement, also known as automatic UV unwrapping. So what that does is automatically unwraps it into its uniform state, which honestly looks really good. But when it comes to texturing, such as on Photoshop, it's such a hassle. It's better to be organized with this. So each one of these call nets, and they that one's a good one, but you get a lot of stuff like this, and it gets very tedious to texture after a while. So that's why I instead got most of my nets all joined up in a bigger piece so they are easier to work with, and I have no missing little pieces behind, apart from this thin piece. That's a bit of hard work. But you get my meaning, it's very good to use. Different pieces also have different functions as well. So say for example, if I had this lovely juicy apple thing, usually the best thing to do would be cylinder UV unwrap, as you can see here. It will come up with this little gizmo on top, which presents the sphere, a little wireframe of a sphere. Now, I will have a explanational drawing somewhere on the screen, but basically what it does is it shows a wireframe of a sphere, hence the name spherical unwrapping, and it shoots UV rays inwards into the sphere onto the object, and it projects the outcome onto your UV plane. So I can just adjust this and get the best look I can for it without stretching or anything like that. And that's how it goes. That's how it goes. The different ones you can get is planar, spherical, cylindrical for poles and whatnot, automatic, or for more organic shapes you can use contour. Not contour. You can do it for normals or contours, but we will get into that later anyway if I do a bigger project. 3D UV grab tool, that's another thing I've never really used, and there's other things such as camera and so forth. That is mainly everything from the toolbar that I can think of that I can use. A side note is when you finish with every object that you've made and you are completely done with it, completely happy, UVs are done, materials are on, everything's named, then you can move to this center pivot. So say for example your pivot's over here and you're finished with everything. Importing this in Engine would be very bad. Very, very bad. You best to just center your pivot so you know whenever you rotate it, it rotates on its own axes, on the center of itself, or on the bottom, which sometimes works as well because then it rotates on the bottom of itself, which physics would intend. Delete by type history takes away all of the transform data, which I can actually do now. Say for example, if I do edit, delete all by type, history, and it's going to delete all of these little things in here. Okay, most of them. Let me just get all of these. Yeah, delete by history and freeze transforms. Okay, so apparently something's not working, but I'll get that. I will get you later. I will find you and I will kill you. But yeah, that deletes all the history, gets rid of all the data and all of the things that may coincide with you in later programs. Freeze transformations, it basically turns everything back to 0. So if I have things here scale from 0141, 0.75, and another 141, if I freeze the transforms, it goes back to 1. That's its original size now. There's no changing that. It's only above or below from that. No difference. You can go back if you want to. The only thing you can't go back on is your history. You can't delete, you can't undo your history. Yeah. You can't delete your history and expect to go back. It's not how it works, my guy. Not how it works. So yeah, that is basically everything I can show you about poly modeling on this case. There's so much information there for you guys to check up. I have went through quite quickly. Maybe I've explained things too far. Leave in the comment section something you would want me to improve upon when explaining this, anything that was good, any other questions you may have. But yeah, this is mainly what you'll be using throughout most of your time on Maya. Thank you for watching, and I wish you guys a good day, all the safety in the world, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.